He had this ability, this instinctive ability to see art in everything.
Anybody can take a look and know that's a Warhol. In fact, you look at advertising today, I mean, you know right away. You look at the color scheme and you say, well, there's Uncle Andy, you know? I mean, they're doing it for Chevy or for Ford or whatever. It's there.
If you go around the world and ask young artists who's the most influential artist on them, Andy Warhol is the first name you mention.
He had a kind of a second lease on life. When I look back to it, I always see it as an incredible turning point for my uncle. He, for good and bad, he changed a lot.
Eternal realities started to really come to the surface. Why am I here? Who is God? I was brought up into a religious family, a religious atmosphere. You know, how do I apply that to my life? I mean, where do I go from here?
It was all of a sudden the studio was a locked door, and you had to be seen on a video camera before entering, and they'd buzz you in, and it was no longer open to anyone.
He had this extraordinary fill of hospitals, partly due to the time in '68 when he was shot by Valerie Solanas and spent a long period in the hospital. And so he put off going to the hospital to have his gallbladder out, and went in and had a private duty nurse and all the things that his wealth at that point allowed him. And then he died due to malpractice.
You know, he was only 58 years old or so, and it was just, we all found it very hard to believe that he'd passed. It just seemed like he was so healthy.
I think it was a matter that he was this presence who was always alive, who was always around, who was the commentator, who was the guy on the street, just wasn't there anymore.
Warhol died Sunday at the age of 58 after gallbladder surgery in New York. The exact cause of death has not been determined.
From midnight on, apparently nobody stuck their nose into my uncle's room. I mean, my goodness. If even a nurse's aide had stuck their head and took a look at him, they would have seen he was dying.
There was a joke in the art world at the time that you should always carry a card with you if you were on the streets or in a taxi that it says, if I am in an accident, do not take me to New York Hospital.
Uncle Andy dies, they find him at 5:30 in the morning. They already have a guard out front. They're already going through his stuff. I mean, come on, you know. That's not normal. Is that normal?
His will basically said, it was very schematic for a man who was as wealthy as he was, liquidate all the stuff I own, property, financial documents, artworks, and make a foundation that will help artists and art institutions. Oftentimes on television, in movies, whenever a character needs to immediately be given the panache of being important, rich, and fabulous, there will be a phony Warhol behind his desk or in his or her living room that's Warhol eyes. And the point is, even if it's not said, ooh, this is the kind of person that artist Andy Warhol would have painted. Now, in truth, we know if you had $37,500, Andy would paint you, whether you were a world leader or a prostitute or whatever. But the point is, there is that sort of notion that Warhol, more than any other artist, just like now, the high prices for his work, he has combined the genius of his artwork, and his artwork, is some of the most important in the 20th century, but also that it has the financial value immediately connected to it. People know if they buy a Warhol work, whether they like it or not, it's money in the bank. It's like AT&T stock. I think the consumer for Warhol, his church, if you will, and his art just grows and grows and grows, and I don't see that changing. His work will always have a major role in world culture, just as Picasso's did, just as Caravaggio's did in the 16th, 17th century. But I think in terms of this amazing mushroom cloud of that his life and his art have on the public imagination, I think as long as the world still continues to think like we do today, whether it's in the United States or Russia or Kuala Lumpur, Warhol will be the eminence.